Hey people, have you seen Tom Moloughney's video where he interviews Jim Farley that he posted earlier this week? Well, if you haven't, then you should. And also, the network architect points out that all this talk you hear, this negative talk about EVs, follow the money and you might get a different story. It is Friday, y'all. St. Patrick's Day weekend. Let's get to it. Happy Friday. Boom! Happy Friday, everybody. It was a big week, busy week. But hey, we got through it, right? And to cap the week off, let's talk about Tom Moloughney from State of Charge, his interview with Jim Farley that was posted earlier this week. It was outstanding. And first of all, I mean, obviously Tom is awesome, but I think this interview showed what a good dude, what a good dude Jim Farley actually is, because he's really a car guy, he cares. You don't always see that in big shot executives of huge, massive corporations. They don't necessarily always care all that much about their customers, but I think Jim Farley does, and I think that kind of came through in this interview. And what I thought was really interesting about it was, how he came to the decision to push Ford into the whole world of NACS and to be the first one to go. And, it really started apparently with a family road trip that he was taking in an F-150 Lightning. And just, seeing all the Tesla Superchargers all along the route. And I thought it was interesting when he made the comment in the interview that he said, I always kind of intellectually understood that Tesla had a huge network and a big advantage. But when you actually see it, and when you're in a CCS vehicle and you almost don't make it back from your trip because there's a lot of broken chargers for CCS, it really drives that home in a different way. And I thought that was really interesting because that's true. I think obviously if you were an executive at Ford or GM or any other car manufacturer, you knew that Tesla's network was huge and it was a massive advantage as far as electric vehicles. But when you actually go out, especially at that time, just a couple of years ago, driving around in an electric vehicle, a CCS vehicle, and at that time you were always finding problems at Electrify America or EVgo, and that was just the way it was. So I thought it was interesting. That's kind of what really got him thinking, like, man, I think he didn't say this exactly, but I think the gist of it was kind of like, yeah, we're not going to catch up to these guys, and the existing networks that are out there are not as good, and there's just not as many of them. And to really give Ford's EV customers the best possible experience just made sense to go to the NACS standard, and then making the decision to develop an adapter for current Ford EV owners. Obviously that makes sense looking back on it, and anyone on the outside would probably think, well, of course they had to do that. But they didn't. They could have just said, hey, we're going to NACS in 2025 and everybody else, sorry, but they didn't do that. And I think that's where Jim Farley caring about Ford's customers really kind of comes into play. Like, he felt like, no, we have to not only switch to the J3400 NACS standard for our future vehicles, but when Tesla opens the network up, we have to offer an adapter to our current users, and then not only that, but offer the adapter for free until June. And that just, again, for me, I guess if you're thinking, if you're an accountant or a bean counter at Ford, you're probably like, what? You're going to give it away for free? Are you insane? But what else could he really do when you really think about him? I suppose they could have just said, hey, we're going to sell this thing for $200 or $250, whatever. And there's probably plenty of Ford drivers that would have probably paid for that. But there would have been a lot that wouldn't have really been very happy about it, right? They would have been like, hey, wait a minute. Why am I getting left out of this party? Why do I have to go and buy an adapter now? That's not cool. And the other thing is, giving away for free kind of forces all the other car makers to probably do the same thing, much the way Ford kind of forced all the other car companies to go to NACS, because as Tom pointed out to Jim in the interview, once Ford went with that and made that decision and announced it, that they were going to NACS, all the other car companies basically had no choice. They had to follow. There was, what justification could any of them have made for not doing it? They just had to. And so now it'll be interesting to see when GM gains access to Tesla's charging network. Will they have the same adapter? Because the adapter that Ford is using is Tesla made, right? So will GM have the same adapter? Just mean with the GM logo on it, and are they going to give it away for free? That's an interesting thing to watch for. I think they don't really have a choice. It's going to be hard. I mean, especially if you think about, if the F-150 Lightning and the Mach-E especially are higher priced vehicles than the majority of GM EVs that are out there. I mean, like the Bolt, is for EVs is fairly inexpensive, and there's not a ton of Blazer EVs on the road yet. So I think it would be hard to tell a Bolt owner you don't get a free adapter when someone who has like an F-150 Lariat or Platinum or a Mach-E GT is going to get one for free. I think with that, they'd be hard pressed. And I think it makes sense to put a limit on it, like Ford, saying, hey, you've got until June to buy this free adapter, and if you don't buy it by then, well, then it's on you. I mean, we made it free for 3 months. You should have ordered one while it was free. And then and the other thing too is if someone knows the answer to this, put it in the comments. One thing I have not seen, and maybe I just haven't seen it, I missed it, I don't know, is let's say, we get to July, August of this year, and you go into a Ford dealer and say, I want to buy an F-150 Lightning, or you want to buy a Mach-E, or an E-Transit even. After the free adapter, you can't order the free adapter anymore. Are they going to give you a free adapter with the purchase of an F-150 or a Mach-E? I would imagine that they probably would. I would proceed under the assumption that they probably would. I think it would be kind of tough to be like, oh, we are buying a brand new F-150 Lightning. Everybody else has access to the Supercharger network. Oh, but you need to pay another $200 or $300 for this adapter. I would imagine that it either will come with the car, or if they don't have supply yet, they'll tell you like, yes, you can. We will get you a free one as soon as it becomes available. I would think they would have to do that. And then again, I think that would force GM and Volvo, Rivian, Polestar, all the others down the line to do the same thing. So I think it was a brilliant move by Jim Farley. I mean, it was the right thing to do. And he kind of mentioned it too, that like Tesla was not at first, they didn't seem all that interested in doing this, which kind of makes sense on one hand, because obviously, Tesla had that, massive advantage as far as the charging network, and they could have kept everybody out. And certainly for their customers, it's a huge thing. It's a great little, it's a great perk to have that you have this amazing charging network, and you can get an adapter to charge at CCS if you really wanted to or had to. But when is that? I mean, it's probably pretty rare that you have to if you're a Tesla owner. But so they could have just kept it closed and said, no, we're going to keep it closed, and you guys will never come close to selling as many EVs as us. But I think Elon probably realized, probably no one's going to come close to them for quite a while anyway. And, as Jim said in the interview, if you're really, if your mission is really to make EVs the dominant type of vehicle on the road, then why not open the network up so that everybody can make EVs, everybody can use this network? So it totally makes sense from that perspective that they would want to do it. And also, the way to get NEVI funding to make these upgrades was to do it. I mean, to open up the NACS standard to everybody. And the only thing that kind of doesn't line up with that for me is, Elon had put it out there well before Ford announced that they were going to go to NACS. He put it out there as like, oh, we're going to make this open source. Like any manufacturer that wants to do NACS can do it. That's when he called it NACS. No one called it North American Charging Standard before that, right? And he basically put it out there like, hey, anybody that wants to take this technology, they can. And no one really picked up on that until Ford decided that they were going to be the first, right? So it's weird though, that Tesla would have been a little iffy about it, even though they'd already kind of put it out there that they were going to make the NACS standard an open standard. So, but in any event, who cares? It happened. Ford and Jim, they were very forward thinking, and I'd say probably pretty brave to go and do this, because I'm sure, as Tom pointed out in the interview, he probably got a lot of flack or heard it from other car manufacturers about, what are you doing? But, and because not only because it was like, well, you're basically, I think a lot of them had the idea that, Ford was capitulating to Tesla, like, oh, you're the leader and we'll just follow you, which I don't think that was the case. But also, hey, you're making us all do this now. Now we all have to follow you. So, there is an expense to this. It's nothing that's going to bankrupt any of these companies, but there is an expense to make that change, to change the technology that they put in their vehicles. So, it was a big deal. And, kudos to Jim Farley for not only doing or being the first to step forward and say we're going to go with NACS, but also for doing the interview with Tom and some other YouTubers. But the one with Tom, it was really good. I'm a huge fan of Tom's because I love all this charging stuff, and we're all nerdy about that stuff, and we love it. And I'm no different. I've been a big fan of his for a long time. His videos are great. And, one of the great things about Tom is, like, he loves all this stuff, and it's all real. There's no BS with him. There's no fluff. He's not trying to be a filmmaker. He's like, hey, I'm giving you the info, And that's why him and Kyle Connor, those guys are great. So thanks a lot for that interview, Tom, and thanks to Jim Farley for doing it. That was really cool. I'll link it below. I'm sure if you're watching this, you've probably already seen it, but if you have not, go watch it and watch it all the way through, because it's killer. Which leads me to another really awesome YouTuber, the Network Architect. I love his videos because he's just like, here's the data, and it's just like he lays it all out, but it's not like an hour-long video of just spreadsheets that we're going to be like, he presents it to you in a quick, like, digestible fashion, and he just shows you what's going on, right? And he, every week he puts out a video where he's showing, all the new DC fast chargers that have been installed that week, which is really awesome. Like, it's usually like, 5-6 minute long video where he just goes through the data, and you can see all, he'll show you, Tesla added 6 this week, ChargePoint added a ton. And, it's great. So he did a video this week about FUD busting all the negative EV talk out there. And basically the gist of the video, and it's even in his thumbnail, was follow the money. And he made a lot of great points in this video. And I think, it's stuff that when you hear it, it's like, oh yeah, it's so obvious, but not everybody really thinks about it. The main gist of it is, and again, I'll link that below, because you definitely should go watch that video, and you should subscribe to the Network Architect if you're not already. But he was basically saying, follow the money. Like, you look at the massive investments that are being made in EV charging infrastructure. These companies aren't doing it because they think no one's going to use it. They're not going to pour all this money into EV charging if they think it's just a fad and EVs aren't going to last. It's not going to be a thing. They wouldn't do it. I mean, Iona, which is the new charging company that's a consortium of, I believe it's Mercedes, BMW, Honda, Hyundai, Kia. I'm sure I'm forgetting someone. Stellantis. I'm probably still forgetting somebody. But, they're basically pouring like $10 billion into building, installing 30,000 DC fast charging connections in North America by 2030, which is only less than 6 years away at this point now, right? So that money isn't being poured into all that because they're not planning to sell EVs. All those car companies are basically, I think what Iona kind of is, it's almost like saying, okay, well, Tesla built themselves this massive advantage because before they went mass market with Model 3 and with Model Y, they were already building the network, and they just keep building it and keep building it. And I think if you watch the Network Architects videos, you'll see it's usually like 6 or 7 new Tesla sites go live every week. They're doing 6 or 7 a week just in North America. That's insane. ChargePoint's putting in a ton of plugs. I don't know if the sites match Tesla, but those two companies alone are they're like rolling with new charging infrastructure. But Tesla has that advantage. And I think these companies now are saying, we're going to pour all this money in to try and, I don't know if necessarily catch up to Tesla, but basically kind of build their own network up. And they're starting now, so that as they know they have more EVs coming out down the line into 26, 27, 28, 29, 2030, that the network, they're building their own. So you'll have access to Tesla. You'll have whatever is out there now. And then Ionna's is going to come in and add all these new superchargers or DC fast chargers all over North America. And 5 or 6, 7 years from now, you're not going to have this argument that there's not enough charging. There's not enough places to charge. There's going to be plenty. And, and if you think about that, again, these car companies know what they're going to be building. Now, I know some companies have, changed their plans a little bit and maybe are leaning more into hybrids than EVs right now. But trust me, EVs aren't going anywhere. They're only going to increase. It's more and more and more and more. And, I see them all over the place. It's crazy how when I got my Polestar almost 2 years ago now, I would see Teslas a lot. But I didn't really see a lot of other brands of EVs out because there weren't many. The Ioniq 5 was still kind of new. So there weren't a ton of other options. And now there's so many, and there's more and more coming all the time. And now I see Teslas, I see BMW EVs, Audis, Rivian, all over the place. F-150 Lightnings, I see them all over. Mach-E's. I mean, EVs are all over the place, and they are not going away. And this video was a great illustration of why, and why you shouldn't listen to the media and people panicking about, EVs they're going down in flames. It's all over. It's not going to last. The media is usually wrong about most things, and they're probably almost 100% wrong about this. And 10 years from now, we'll be looking back going, I remember when they said EVs were never going to last, and now they're like 55 to 60% of the cars on the road are EVs. Yeah, that's, I think, where we're headed. So again, check out the Network Architect. Link to his video below. It's really good. Tom's video is really good. I love all this EV YouTube stuff. The community is awesome. There's so many great YouTubers out there, way better than me because I just sit here and blab. But these guys are actually really smart and know what they're talking about. So go watch them, and I hope you guys have a great St. Patrick's Day weekend. Happy St. Patrick's Day, and I will see you guys later. And remember, EVs are awesome, and it's okay to be awesome. See you later.